Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of Fill in the Blink, where we fill you in on everything business and tech. I'm Nayha and this is Hassan, and today we're going to talk about navigating churn in B2B SaaS.
All right, navigating churn sounds fancy.
Exciting.
Yep, but before we get to that, what exactly is churn, Neha?
Okay, so for people who may not know, churn
Yeah.
is a business metric. It measures the rate at which your customers or your subscribers are leaving your product or service within a given time period.
Okay.
So essentially, it's the percentage of customers that are no longer with you as
All right.
your customers in the company.
All right, so exactly, customer is leaving your business, right?
Yeah.
But when does it happen? It can happen at different stages, right? So, like customers can leave your business at the start of the journey, towards the end of the journey, right? So there are different stages where customers choose to churn.
Yeah.
Exactly. And there are many reasons for it, right? So the most important being that there is no product fit.
Yeah.
So your product is actually not solving any problem for your customers. They're not getting any value out of using your product, right?
Yeah.
So if they're not getting any value, they will stop paying and they will go away,
Yeah.
right? Makes sense,
For sure.
right? And after product fit, there's also product usage. So customers have signed up for your product, but they're not using it as frequently. There's no frequency, there's no recency in usage, right? So they signed up a few months back and then they never...
They ghosted you, basically.
Exactly, they ghosted you, right? So this has a lot to do with product training and enablement, right? So maybe they were not trained enough on how to get value out of your product, right? Maybe they don't have the time or resources to manage the product that you're offering to them, right? So this is the other reason related to product why customers churn. And then there are many different commercial reasons as well, right? So maybe a customer or a business has pivoted. They have changed their objectives and your product is no longer relevant to their new direction, right? So they will churn because it might have solved a problem for them in the past, but now with their new direction, it's not relevant, right? And then maybe the price is too high, right? So the customers are getting some value out of it, but the ROI is not that great, right? So that happens. And this also gives opportunity to competitors to come in and take away your customers, right? So maybe they can take away your customers on pricing, offer them a discount, get them a lower price, and just take your customers away, right? Or they come up with some offerings that you currently don't have, right? So it can work both ways, right? So it can be price and product related, right? So apart from that, I'd say sometimes businesses shut down. So like if a business shuts down, then there is no business to pay you a monthly subscription.
You don't have a customer anymore.
You don't have a customer anymore. So I think these are some of the reasons why churn occurs. Obviously not all inclusive, but like some of the main reasons why churn occurs.
I think the biggest one is still product fit, because that is the one thing that sort of leads to a customer staying or not. So if you have that covered, everything else is still more easier to make sure that your customer stays back.
100%.
So makes sense. So now that we talked about the different stages where your customers can churn, let's dive deep into B2B SaaS and how churn is for B2B SaaS companies.
All right.
So at Blink, we have we see two different types of churn.
Okay.
So there's logo churn and then there's dollar churn. Logo churn is pretty self-explanatory. So it's basically all your logos or customers that cease working with you within a given time period. So if you have, let's say, 100 customers in total, and 10 customers each, so your logo churn would be 10%. But dollar churn is different. It's basically the dollar value or the revenue that is no longer returning to you from your customers within a given time period. So it's essentially your subscription MRR that you are no longer getting in a certain time period.
Makes sense.
So if we talk about the previous example where you had 100 customers and 10 customers left you, if the 10 customers were contributing, let's say, $5,000, your total MRR is $100,000.
Okay.
Since you lost $5,000 out of $100,000, so your dollar churn is still 5%, but your logo churn is 10%. So that means you're losing customers that are providing you less value. So if you flip this around, if you have 2 big clients that leave you that are worth each $10,000, your logo churn is only 2% because you lost 2 customers, but your dollar churn is 20%. So that's a huge difference when you compare the two. Churn, and that shows you that churn is not always equal. It's you need to see, how your dollar churn and your logo churn is varying. So if you have a high logo churn but a low dollar churn, that means that you're wasting resources on customers that are not providing you value. So it might even be better to part ways with customers like that. So that's why it's really important to compare the two types of churn.
No, exactly. That's very useful information. So it also helps you prioritize how you deal with your customers, right? So spend more time with your high value customers and try to automate the relationships with your low value customers. Makes sense. Now, I think having discussed all of this, let's dive deeper into what needs to be done at each stage.
How can you avoid
churn? How can we avoid churn, right? So we, like at Blink, we start off with marketing, right? So we spend a lot of time doing customer research, studying our ideal customer profiles, how the representatives at that organization use our services, our products, and what value they're getting out of it, right? And then all our messaging is aligned around how Blink is actually solving problems for customers. So it sort of sets the expectation straight. Whenever someone comes across our content, they know exactly what Blink is doing. And like from very early on, we can gauge if they'll be a good fit with us, right? So it starts with marketing because this is the first touch point that your customers have with your product, right? So that needs to be aligned with all the problems that you're solving and all the value that you're creating, right? Then if you move on to the sales process and onboarding, our teams are very quick to qualify which customer can be a good fit, and we pursue those only. We don't spend time with a customer that might not be a good fit, right? So that's very important that your sales team is trained to identify and then communicate the value to your high-performing customers. And the onboarding stage should be very simple and straightforward with milestones, and enough engagement with the customers so that they are kept in the loop of what's going on when they will go live, and the time to value is actually as low as possible. So once they sign up, they get to value as soon as possible, right? And then moving on, I think the most important team when it comes to churn and retention is the customer success team, right? So for any SaaS company, that is the backbone, right? The customer success team. And as the name suggests, their job is to ensure that the customers you onboard are successful after using your service, right? So there's a lot of cadences that the customer success teams has in place to interact with different stakeholders at an organization throughout their life cycle, from weekly follow-ups to meetings to monthly reviews, quarterly business reviews, etc. And providing the right information to the right stakeholders and quantifying the value that the product has created for them in a time period, right? So it's very important to know what you were doing before using a specific product and what changed in your metrics, let's say 3 months after using the product or 6 months after using the product, right? So this is very important. And customer support or customer experience is also very important because those are the people who are dealing with your customers day in, day out, all the time. They are on the front line. Solving any issues, guiding them on how to use the product, and ensuring their feedback is incorporated into the product that is being built, right? Which is where the product team comes in. So we talked about how product fit was the most important thing. Product teams in a B2B SaaS are the most important teams because they are actually translating the customer's requirement into actual products that they use and they get value out of, right? So your PMs, your product team should be clearly aligned with how your customers are using your product. They should have insights, data of what features, what aspects of your product are being used the most, what are not being used at all. And then based on the requests, they are prioritizing the right features and they're quantifying the value every feature is bringing to the customers, right? So it's all about having the right data and merging it with the right qualitative demands of the customer.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important for companies to make sure that they have the entire customer journey mapped out, and they're making sure that each touch point is, completely and completely smooth and completely like to the point where your customers are actually deriving value and you're providing that value to them. And I think the key takeaway from this episode would be that not all churn is bad. So when I talked about logo churn versus dollar churn, so if your logo churn is high and your dollar churn is low, that means you're losing low value customers. So the trash is basically taking itself out. And you should focus your efforts, you should focus your resources on high value customers. So that's, the way that most organizations should look at their customers and their churn. And
100%.
Your major focus should be your ideal customer profiles.
All right. So, that was super helpful. Great discussion around churn and what we can do to mitigate it. And like one thing, like there's no such thing as zero churn, right? So a business will always be losing its customers. Maybe they shut down, they cease to exist, right? Force majeure or anything out of the ordinary. Exactly. So no, this was super helpful.
Okay. Thank you for filling me in on how to mitigate churn. And I will see you all in the next episode.
All right.